Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to the third installment of the American Numismatic Association's A&A Legacy Series. Here we get acquainted with legends, heroes, and icons of the numismatic hobby. I'm your host, Steve Roach, editor-at-large of Coin World, and today we have the opportunity to listen to someone who I've known for 20 years, someone who has so many wonderful stories, someone who is the father of the elongated coin hobby, Ray Dillard. Now, take this opportunity to silence your cell phones. Good. Let me introduce Ray. Author, collector, patriarch of the elongated coin hobby, Raymond W. Dillard of Fenton, Michigan. You would never guess this, but Ray celebrated his 90th birthday last month. He was born on July 3rd, 1925 in Parma, Missouri. He was the 10th of 11 children born to James and Sadie Dillard. The Depression was hard on Ray and his family, and they moved back and forth between Parma and Flint, Michigan in search of work. He attended 11 different elementary schools. He devotedly attended school at night and during the summer, eventually graduating with his original classmates at Flint Central High School in 1943. He met his wife Betty in 1944, and they raised two daughters, Sherry and Kathy. Unable to serve in the military, he signed on with General Motors Corporation, where he worked for 40 years. Ray started collecting coins in the 1960s, and in the mid-1980s, he began to bring his elongating machine to A&A conventions. Now, his goal is to live to 110 because, in his words, everyone lives to be 100, and I have work piled up till at least then. Ray has won so many awards. Just reading his bio, here's just a handful of them. He's been elected a numismatic ambassador. He's received the A&A Presidential Award, Outstanding Club Representative, Glenn Smedley, and a Wildy Award. He was the Assistant General Chairman of the 1994 A&A Convention in Detroit and recently served as the Honorary Chairman of the 2013 A&A Convention in Chicago. I'd like us all for a warm welcome for Ray Dillard. Ray, thank you for joining us today. The interview will be around 30 minutes, 35 minutes. Towards the end, we will break. Audience will be able to ask some questions. So let's get started. Now, you came from a large family. What was it like growing up with so many siblings during the Great Depression?
Yes, I did come from a large family, but we were a real close family. All of the 11 children were born before the Depression, and we at that time had a large farm. And a lot of kids were free labor. They were a real asset on the farm. But in 1929, my parents lost the farm, and we moved to Flint, Michigan, looking for work in the auto plants. Well, it didn't work out too well because many times there was no union at that time, and they actually hired more people than they needed. And many times my dad would go to work, and they would tell him to go up in the lunchroom and wait, and if we need you, we'll call you. And many times he wouldn't work a minute a day, wouldn't make a dime a day. And he usually would bring home his lunch, and us kids thought that was quite a treat. But so we moved back to Missouri as sharecroppers. And that's when I began to remember things. Of course, had no electricity, kerosene for lights, pump for water. And we certainly didn't have, for us 11 kids, private bedrooms. In fact, we didn't even have private beds. There are times that I can remember we actually slept 4 in a bed, 2 at top and 2 at the foot. But it was an experience. It was an experience.
Now, going from place to place, from school to school, that must have been really challenging. Like, how did you adjust to your new surroundings?
I could almost say I fought for it. But actually going to the different schools as a new kid, and we were in the north mostly, we were Southerners, which were outsiders. And I actually had to prove myself in many cases, and it wasn't unusual that there was a fight after school, and I was involved in it. But I actually I was pretty tough, really. Later years, I was in the Golden Gloves. But that's about all I can say, that moving from school to school, it was about the same thing. Then one of the problems was that moving back and forth from Missouri to Michigan, there were different levels they were teaching, and actually they taught different things. They taught the for thee, and they taught for a, and it was a different life, but it worked out well.
Now, when you weren't getting into trouble, what did you do for fun when you were a kid?
Well, of course, in the South, we had a playground contraption that we called the Flying Jenny. And it was like a teeter-totter, only rather than just going up and down, it had a pin in the center, and one kid would get on each end and someone else would spin it, and actually you get thrown off from the centrifugal force. But it was fun. And in the north, where was other things, we had hoops that we made. We had scooters that we usually made. If we had a kind of roller skate, we'd put wheels on the front end and the back end of a 2x4 and an orange crate, and we had a scooter running up and down the streets.
Now let's
And marbles, usually. Let me say one thing too about in the South, that by June 1st, we could go barefoot, and most of the kids went barefoot to school.
Let's move forward a few years. So, to make sure you graduated before you reported to the draft board in 1943, you made it through high school in 2.5 years. Tell us what happened then.
Well, I started taking an extra course in the 9th grade, and then the 10th grade I continued to take an extra subject, and I had built up a couple extra credits. And in high school, 11th and 12th grade, my counselor said, "Hey, you're coming draft age, and we got to do something to get you through school before you're drafted." And so they gave me some Mickey Mouse classes just to make up credits, and I did graduate in 2.5 years. And then I go to the draft board, and I was rejected for physical reasons. And I was really devastated because everybody was super patriotic at that time. And I had 3 brothers in the service. I had 3 brother-in-laws and a sister-in-law. And actually, at social gatherings, I was usually the only man present except other than my father. And it was a little difficult, a little embarrassing. But I tried to enlist in every other branch, but being rejected for the draft, they wouldn't even talk to me. I even tried to enlist in a labor battalion that they were getting together to help rebuild Pearl Harbor, and I was rejected there too. Actually, they were looking for skilled tradespeople, but they advertised it anybody and everybody, but they didn't want me. I didn't have the qualifications. But it was a little embarrassing, really, to not be in the service. And But I thought I'd go to get some education. So I tried to enroll in General Motors Institute. And there again, because of the Mickey Mouse courses, I lacked a couple of credits. And they said, why don't you enroll in night school? But to go down to the hill here, and the Chevrolet plant was down in the area. And so you hire in a Chevrolet and take these night classes and make up these credits and come back next semester. Well, in the meantime, I met the love of my life, and I was making big money at Chevrolet at 89 cents an hour. And I thought 4 years of college would a lifetime, too long. But we were married at 19. We were both 19 years old. And it lasted for 62 and a half years. My wife passed away after that. And the 4 years, it seemed like a long time. 40 years later, I retired from Chevrolet, from General Motors.
Now, at General Motors, you had such a wide-ranging career. I mean, you went from office, like errand boy, to office manager. Tell us a little bit more about what you did at General Motors.
That was probably the luckiest thing that happened to me. I hired in as an office boy, and I was running errands and doing odd jobs in the office, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And so I offered to help anybody and everybody that needed help in the office. And in doing so, I learned every job in the office. And it wasn't too long after that I actually was promoted to office manager in the plant engineer's office. And from there, after several years, I was promoted to a little higher supervisory job. And eventually, through several promotions, I was transferred to Chevrolet Central Office at the Tech Center in Warren. And from there, I was transferred to the Corporate Central Office. I actually hired, I said hired, I was actually retired from the GM building. And I was quite pleased with myself that without an education, I didn't do bad for an old country boy.
Now, let's talk about your coin collecting and your involvement in the hobby a little bit. A lot of people start collecting as a young person, myself included. You came to the hobby a little bit later in life, in your 40s. What sparked the interest for you?
Well, there's a lady sitting in the front row here who was responsible for that. That's my daughter. And at 16, one of her friends bought her a big piggy bank. And she had no idea how in the world she was ever going to fill that pig. And I told her, I said, well, I'll help you. And after when we fill it, we'll butcher it and we'll see what happens. And it took us a couple of years. And actually, I told someone about it, and they said, well, when you empty that pig, said you be sure and save everything pre-war. And so that made me have to look at every damn one of those coins, the date and the mint marks, which would never meant anything to me before, but we've got quite an accumulation out of that savings. And from there, it sparked an interest in the coins, and actually that's the way it started.
Now, when people hear Ray Dillard, the first thing that they're going to think about are elongated coins. What brought you to that segment of our hobby?
Very unusual. Actually, I never got involved with elongated coins until after I retired from General Motors. And what happened was that I seen an article in Coin World about a Jewish fellow in New York City that had several elongating machines, and he had people working for him, rolling the Lord's Prayer on pennies. And there was kind of a little bit of humorous with the fact that it was a Jew making a living off of the Lord's Prayer. Anyway, that reminded me that I actually seen and got an elongated coin back in 1934 at the Chicago World's Fair, which was a century of progress, when I was 9 years old. And I thought, hey, I'm just retired, and I have accumulated a considerable collection, and it's fairly expensive, and I figured that that might be something to get me involved. It would at least keep me busy, keep me involved, and help finance my hobby. And so this article in Coin World, it had reference to the officers of Tech, which was the elongated collectors, and the Secretary of Tech lived in Detroit. So I contacted her, and we had quite a discussion over the phone. She referred me to Frank Brazel, who was just getting started in making elongated machines and rolling elongated coins. So I contacted him and made arrangements to come down to visit him. And actually, I went down and I bought one of his machines. Now that started out pretty good, but I didn't have much of a clientele, and so it wasn't making any money until I set up at a local coin show, and there was a reporter from the local Flint Journal paper and noticed me, took pictures, and lo and behold, there was an article in the local paper with a picture of me and the story about the elongated coins. And it was a syndicated paper. They also had the story in several other papers throughout the state. And it wasn't long after that a couple of officers from the Michigan State Numismatics Society contacted me, came to see me, and asked if I would come to their convention and roll coins to hand out at their registration desk. And this I did. And the additional exposure, I got requests from other organizations and individuals. So it just blossomed from there to the point where I was doing about 8 shows a year. And I told my wife that I would slow down to a trot when I was 70 years old, but that really didn't happen. But I am now. I've cut down. I'm only doing, I think, 5 shows this year.
Now, what did Betty think of your involvement in the hobby, and specifically elongated coins?
Well, it was probably one of my disappointments. She was very tolerant, but she didn't have any interest in what I was doing. And I guess I could say that for the same thing for the entire family. They are tolerant, and I have in later years here, they usually go with me just to help out old Dad, but they really have no interest in the coins.
For our viewers who might not be familiar with elongated coins, can you share a little bit about their history, starting with the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893?
Well, it's generally accepted that they did start. Elongated first appeared at the Columbian Exposition in 1893. There is some sketchy information. There may have been something in Europe before that, but that was a big start at the Columbian Exposition. Most of those were rolled on, of course, Indian cents, which were circulating at that time. That's all they had, and the V nickels. But there are, of course, lots of others on different obsolete coins and also foreign coins and what have you. Okay, from there, actually, the elongated coins have a great legacy for Chicago, or at Chicago, because later on, let me back up a little bit here. The original elongated coins at the Columbian Exposition were quite very plain. It had nothing but the Columbian Expo lettering and a date. And until later on, Charles Dam, who had a jewelry manufacturing company in Buffalo, New York, and some way, somehow, he got involved, and it is attributed to him, but it probably was employees in his company that did the engraving, and they did engraving coins for the Buffalo Pan American Exposition in Buffalo in 1901, and they were actually deep engraved and real works of art compared to what they were at the Columbian Exposition. Well, that was such a huge success that he also engraved all the dies for the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904. And Bob Hendershot, of course, made that quite famous. And he was a specialist in collecting a collection of the St. Louis World's Fair. Then their coins were made for different societies and different events, and but later on, that way they were quite active up until the mid-teens, in 1915, 16, that area. And then they died out and didn't become real active again until the Chicago World's Fair in 1933, 34. And of course, things were pretty tough at that time. But at that fair, there were over 100 different dies made. And as the most for any fair ever before or since. And I was at that fair. And as I say, I got an elongated coin with the Lord's Prayer on it. Now, being a poor boy from a large family, and things were quite tough, I had a couple of benefactors that took a liking to me, and they did a lot of extra things for me. They actually took me to that fair. They were more like foster parents for me, and I felt very fortunate. That extended until I was in my mid-teens, until actually the lady didn't die until later on in life. She actually moved back to San Francisco, where she came from. And that was kind of a sad situation too, because she went back to San Francisco because her husband had died, and her family was involved in the earthquake, and she lost all of her family. She didn't have a living soul, and she was still looking for her sister. It's right up to the time she died. So much for that.
So, as a 9-year-old, what do you recall? What are your impressions that you remember from the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago?
As I say, that coin, and it affected me for later in life. But yes, on entering that fair, well, two things. We went to the fair. I rode a train, first train I ever rode in my life. We stayed at a hotel, high class. Never stayed in a hotel before. But then it was very exciting going to the fair. Once entering the fair, you walked down the avenue of flags, and the flags from every state and every country, and the wind was whipping them and snapping them, and it was really, really exciting. Then, of course, the main thing at the fair was the sky ride. It went over the lagoon, and the towers, they said top of the towers you could see 4 states. You could see Michigan, you see Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin from the top of it. And we went up there, and it had to be a clear day before you could see all of them. Then the midway, there was lots of different exciting things going on, and there was a lot of discussion about Sally Rand. Sally Rand was a fan dancer, of course. We didn't go see it, but there was a lot of discussion about it.
Let's talk a bit about what goes into creating an elongated coin. It takes a blend of artistic skills, engraving skills, mechanical skills. Tell us what's involved in creating dies for elongated coins and then rolling examples out on a hand-operated machine. Because, I mean, you do these by hand. Tell us about it.
Well, actually, usually someone contacts me, they want a coin made. And I ask them to give me a sketch or give me an idea of what you want on this coin. And usually they give me something like this. And I say, if you got a logo, let me build something around your logo. And anyway, this is one I just got from one of my good customers, very good customers, John Wilson. I do a coin for him every year. And just what we ended up with this sketch. This is what I end up with. And I send a sketch off after it's approved. I send a sketch off to a die maker, and they cut this image on a roll such as this. And I can roll anything up to the size of a $50 on my machine by changing the pressure. But usually I roll about 1,000 coins, and I charge them a flat fee for it. But I have repeat customers year after year after year. Now, you said rolling by hand. I do. That is more or less for demonstration. At home, I have this same machine hooked up to an electric motor and a speed reducer. And coming to a show like this, I would roll about 6,000 coins on my electric machine at home. And the few that I roll at the show was just for demonstration or some special coin that they might want rolled. And actually, I create a lot of rarities that at the show, because I offer to roll anything that will go through my machine. Now, frequently, let's say frequently, a dealer will come to me and say, "Do you roll gold?" And he's just horsing around, and I say, "Sure, you're gold." And I've rolled quite a few coins, a lot of coins of gold coins. I would say I probably rolled at least 100 gold coins.
When you think of the elongated coins that you've designed, do any stand out?
Well, yes. Some of the coins we've used for roll for the elongated collectors and the roll special coins for the ANA convention. Those are always nice coins, but probably my favorite has been personal coins that I have rolled for myself. Rolled one for our 50th wedding anniversary, and another one for our 60th wedding anniversary. I rolled wedding coins for my grandchildren. But the others that I guess would have to stand out would be one that I rolled for the Singapore Mint. He wanted 30,000 coins rolled for the Year of the Ox. And the other one was the Australian Olympics. Now, those were some experiences because they were on the other side of the world, and they would call me at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was daylight there, but wasn't necessarily wasn't for me. But they were nice coins. In fact, the ones that I rolled for Australia, I rolled them on their large pennies and half pennies. I had 2 different dies. And I went to ship them to them, and I can't remember how many, but it was quite heavy. I had 3 huge boxes. And I took them to UPS to ship them, and I said, what's the cost? And they said $300. And I said, for all 3 boxes? And he said, heck no, for $300 each. I can't afford $300. I'm not getting that much out of this job. So I contacted them, and they gave me a number and to use their license, and they paid the bill. They seemed to be happy, and they were nice coins. They're nice coins.
You referenced the coin that you're wearing right now and the Elongated Collectors Group. I mean, that's such an enthusiastic club. How do you think that the elongated hobby will fare in the future?
Well, it seemed to be going pretty well, but it's different today than it was before. It started based on collecting older elongated coins. And today it's more directed to the tourist type coins, people going to different attractions, and there seems to be a machine almost at every tourist attraction, even on the turnpikes. There are machines at the truck stops and what have you, rest stops. But and that's what most of them are collecting today. It's a little disappointing to me because I can't get that excited about elongated or about modern coins. I make so many of them, I give them away.
You've put together a pretty magnificent collection of elongated coins. When you're looking to add a piece to your collection, what do you look for, and what makes a truly exceptional elongated coin?
It's a little bit unusual because I am currently, my collection is being auctioned off by Stacks and Bowers. But I did accumulate what I claim to be the most extensive collection of older elongated coins in existence. And I wasn't challenged too much other than one fellow, a guy by the name of Doug Fairbanks. He figured he had one as good as mine, but eventually I bought everything that he had that I didn't have, so there's no question that mine was larger than his. But I accumulated that collection by buying collections from other collectors. And in fact, there was a guy with the name of Gus Maccarello that had an elongated museum in Poughkeepsie, New York. And I ended up buying his entire museum. So, and every time I buy a collection, of course, I would cherry pick it for myself, and and the others is stock for resale. But you say, why would I was looking for coins that I didn't have, and compared to the books. There's catalogs of these older elongated coins. Now that's something. I got some books over here. They're really elongated coins are probably classified in several different classifications. There's a book written in by Dottie Dow in the late 70s, and of all the coins that she was aware that existed at that time. Well, once it hit the market and the collectors, well, I've got this one, I got that one, I got something else that isn't in the book. Well, in 1981, why she and Lee Martin collaborated to write a new book. Her book, it contained several hundred coins, and the later book, which was called Yesterday's Elongateds, it contained a couple thousand coins. And there's still coins coming to light now that are not in the book. They're not in the book. They're considered unlisted items. Now that's the older elongateds. Then that covered the period from 1893 to the mid-60s. Anything after that, there was another book written, and it was called Yesterday's Elongateds, and that covered any coins from the mid-60s to the late 70s, and that was called Today's Elongateds. And then later there was an encyclopedia of elongated coins, which is a couple thousand pages, which is a book. I always said it should have been two books rather than one because it's difficult to handle. And it covered additional coins for that period, along with every other thing. It is really an encyclopedia. There's a lot of valuable information there. So that's two different classifications. The third classification is modern, the ones that are being issued and rolled today. So we got yesterday's, today's, and modern.
Now, you're also very involved in Masonic activities, which relate to your numismatic pursuits. Tell us more.
Well, I've been a Mason for 64 years and been quite involved. Now, pennies have a great significance in Masonic activities. In some areas, a penny was considered a day's labor or a day's wages. And so I was offered to, in fact, I made some for myself when I was master of my lodge to hand out to visitors. And it kind of caught on that officers in the various lodges, there's a lodge in every major city, and in some of them several different lodges all over the country. And I began to get orders from different lodge officers for them to hand out these pennies to their visitors in their activities. As there was a time when I actually claimed that I made more Masonic coins than anyone else in the world because I was making them by the thousands.
So the final question, Ray Dillard, in numismatics, and in life, what would you like your legacy to be?
Well, in numismatics, I guess the legacy would be that my activities in as an elongated collector, and in life, that I'm a strong family man. Now, let me elaborate a little on that. And my parents were strong on family, and we started having family reunions. And we recently celebrated our 75th annual family reunion, and it is on Father's Day every year. It's traditional, and thing of it is that the attendance at times is strangers. Generations come along, I don't recognize these new kids, but their family, they just keep coming back, keep coming back.
Great. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us, to share your knowledge, and to be part of the American Numismatic Association's A&A Legacy Series. Thank you, everyone, for being here and sharing this with us.